Hey guys, welcome back. Another week. I have not been able to look at your projects yet. I'm really excited though to see them. You guys had some really good ideas. I saw like a dome idea, just things that I had never heard of before. And so I'm excited to see what you guys do because, depending how it goes, it may give me some ideas and to help do it in my classroom too. And so that's one of the great things about working on Padlet is we can each see what other teachers do. So if you see some great ideas, it's okay to borrow ideas. Just let the teachers know, or hey, thanks is nice. So the collaboration that is happening on Padlet is really wonderful. So thank you everybody for really insightful comments and just reinforcing what people are doing and learning is really encouraging. So, I wanted to welcome you to my STEM classroom. I'm not at home today when I'm making this video. I'm actually in the classroom. And I just figured it would be kind of cool to show you my classroom. So, I work in an elementary school in New Haven. And you can see my little sign behind me with my name on it, and my bulletin board. And they have STEM notebooks right there. And my schedule. I always have to have a schedule. And I'm just going to give you a little tour of the room. So you can see I have a bunch of whiteboards. This used to be a library and it was now made into a STEM room. So you can see I just got some free stuff from a group called Buy Nothing. And there's one in every town. And I got all of these castle. These are not really STEM, but the kids absolutely love them. So if we have like an indoor recess, the little ones are like so excited. Kindergarten first, even the second were excited. And so you can see I've got a bunch of Legos. I have some blocks and blueprints. I don't know if you've heard of Kiva blocks, but that's that down there. And the kids love these too, magnetiles. Anyway, I got some of this stuff, not all of it. Some of it was from grant writing, and some of it is from asking on the Buy Nothing group. It's called Buy Nothing, and I live in East Lyme, so Buy Nothing East Lyme. And people put up there things they don't want anymore. And I put things up there if I don't want them, and people come to your house, you private message them, and they pick them up. So yesterday I got all of those cars and dolls. Anyway, thank you. I digress, but I wanted to just kind of share with you what a STEM classroom can look like. Not that you guys are planning on being STEM teachers, but some of these things might be stuff that you might like to have in your classroom for kids to work with, depending what grade you teach. Um, so, anyway, this week, I hope you guys had a good time planning your projects and building them. And it's really important that you guys got to build them because any project you do with kids, you always have to try it ahead of time because you'll see there are glitches and things go wrong. So whenever I do something, I always make sure I do it first myself. Um, so you got to kind of try it out, and maybe hopefully the lesson you picked is something that you can do in your regular classroom. I know STEM is engineering is not something that teachers can do all the time, but it could be like a fun Friday, or it could be like a challenge week, or Halloween, and you want to do something kind of fun. So hopefully you got to do something that you can use in your actual classroom when you get out, which is only a year away. Um, so today, what we're going to do is you're going to do a project in a program called Scratch. And Scratch is actually a coding language for kids, and it's used. Um, you're not actually writing the code; you're dragging blocks. So it'll say like turn, and you drop that block in. So it's a lot easier than actual JavaScript, but it's the same ideas. So you learn a lot from doing this coding. So I want to just show you a little video. Why should we teach Scratch?
So you want to learn to code, but you don't know where to start. Let's have a look at Alice Country in action now. Filippo
Okay.
Maestri,
This was not
responsible
what I
for
was trying to
customer care
do.
division.
That is not what I wanted. Skip ads. There we go.
So
Sorry
you
about
want to learn
that.
to code, but you don't know where to start. It can be child's play. Now, I don't code for a living, but I consider myself these days proficient in many programming languages. Whether it be an Arduino project or doing a website or app, I'm comfortable jumping between different languages and achieving what I set out for. The reason I'm telling you this is because I'm completely self-taught. And where did I start? With a little program called Scratch. Scratch is a piece of software developed by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It was created by them to teach children how to code without actually needing to write any language. It was my first step into the programming world, and I'm very grateful for the education it gave me. I learned it so I could then teach to a classroom full of children. But the results have been the foundation upon which all my other programming knowledge has come. If you're student age, then you should jump right in. But if you're an adult and you're just too embarrassed to delve into something designed for children, well, here's 5 reasons why it's still worth a go. All important coding concepts are included. The number one reason that Scratch is great to learn with is that even though it's designed for kids, it includes all of the concepts you'll use later in your programming career. Not only can your code be sequential, but it also can be event-driven. Scratch includes variables, loops, arrays, and all of the other important bits. In recent years, it's been updated to include object-oriented programming, which means you can have instances and variations within that. This will teach you how to code efficiently and set you up for much more complicated programming languages later on. Scratch is free and doesn't require installation. By creating a free account, you can get started within minutes. It doesn't matter if you're on Windows, Linux, or Mac. Anything with a web browser will work. This makes it ideal for introducing into the classroom. You don't have to spend any time installing software or worry about the compatibility of your students' devices. This also makes it easy for parents to install for their kids at home and even for them to have a go themselves. Scratch is very easy to get started for beginners. It features a drag and drop interface and it has tooltips when you hover the mouse over anything. All of the different types of codes have different outlines and shapes, which means they only slot together in a certain way. If you want to find out what something does, hover over the mouse and then drag it out into the programming area and test to see what happens. Trial and error is extremely easy and makes progressing quickly very realistic. There's many free tutorials online and the Scratch documentation is also really good. Scratch has a very active community where you can reverse engineer other projects that you like. You can spend hours browsing through the Scratch galleries and collections until you find something you really like and then open it up and see how it works. Admittedly, a lot of these projects are quite superficial and simple, but every now and again you come across a real gem and you can learn a lot by going inside the code, poking around, and seeing how they achieved it. If you're trying to make something of a specific genre, you can search for that, look inside, and get a head start on your own project. If you find a project you really like but you think something could be slightly improved, make the changes and then remix it and get feedback from the rest of the community. The system works really, really well. Scratch is expandable and moddable. Scratch is not simply limited to 2D games on your computer. You can connect physical hardware and control it via the same drag and drop interface. Any user is welcome to make their own mod and distribute it and share it with others. This means you can make your own mod to go with whatever specialist hardware that you're working with. A good example of this is using it to control robotics, such as the Vorpal hexapod. Now, you might be thinking there's a limitation in Scratch in which you can only work in 2D. Well, to that, I'd say you've got to walk before you can run. If you can develop a really broad range of skills in Scratch, you'll be ready to step up to something more complicated and take your work to the next level. When I was first learning to code, I would constantly challenge myself to see if I could solve problems inside what I thought was Scratch's limitations. I would pick a feature or genre of game and then try and recreate that in Scratch as best as I could. Here is some footage from one of the more complicated games I made when I was learning to code. This game is divided into 2 halves. In the first half, you create a track for your car to race on. I imported about 10 different sprites and then set up keyboard and mouse controls so you could rotate them, move them around, and stamp them into place. There's also features to erase if you make a mistake. When your track is done, you place the finish line, and that brings you to the second mode of the game, racing the car. This game has physics for accelerating, decelerating, and steering. If you run off the track, you lose speed. If you run into the sand, you practically stop. There's also a lap timer which keeps track of your best lap, and I even managed to adapt scratches sound effects to create somewhat of an engine noise. If you're starting out and you think this is too easy for you, then I suggest maybe you're not a beginner after all. The problem-solving and creative mindset I learned from scratch is still with me today. Every time I take on a new complicated project or try and learn a new programming language, I know that if I keep going, I'll be able to find my way through, no matter how hard it seems at the beginning. Well, I hope I've convinced you to get started with Scratch. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on my full series of tutorials coming up. I'll not only cover the basics, but then I'll switch to specific functions you might want to include in your game. After that, I'll jump into great detail. I'm going to try and recreate some of my favorite games available for Android and Apple. Connect with drop interface. Any user is welcome to make their own mod and distribute it and share it
Okay,
with
let me
others.
get out of this.
This means you can
Sorry.
make your own mod to go with whatever specialist hardware